Broadcasting from the Civic Cypher Studios, welcome to the QR Code, where we share perspective, seek understanding, and shape outcomes. The man you are about to hear from is a man that I learn more and more from each and every day of my life. He is the Q in the QR Code. He goes by the name of Q Ward.
The voice that you just heard pays way too much reverence and respect to me when he's really the OG of this thing. He is the R in the QR Code. He goes by the name Ramses Ja.
And we need you to stick around because today we are going to be talking about quite a few things. Still kind of reeling from the, the ripple effect of the recent assassination in this country and how it has manifested itself in different parts of the culture. So later in the show, we're going to be talking about Hannah Einbinder's Emmy acceptance speech for our entertainment segment. We're going to have some dialogue about a black student found hanging from a tree at Delta State University. Prior to that, Q Ward is going to clap back, talking about Karen Ataya, I believe that's how her name is pronounced, being fired for posting Charlie Kirk's own words. Interesting. For Better Do Better, we're going to be talking about how the NFL has honored the assassinated political pundit. We're going to have some opinions about how the Trump administration ended up canceling $350 million in funding for minority-serving schools around the country. And we're going to start off by discussing what's going on in the culture. And very much at the top of what's going on in the culture is these ICE raids. And ICE is currently being investigated for human rights violations for the South Korean plant raid that recently made headlines. So all that and much more to stick around for. But as always, we'd like to start off with a feel-good feature. So today's feel-good feature comes from Fortune. And I'll just get right into it. Target hoped for a back-to-school shopping bump, but foot traffic fell for the 7th straight month in August. And now a national teachers union has joined the boycott against the retailer. There's a reason we call this the feel-good feature. All right. In August, foot traffic fell 3.3% year over year for Target, with the week beginning August 25th, which included the long Labor Day weekend, dropping 4.6%, marking its worst weekly decline in 7 weeks, according to data from Placer.ai. At Target rival Costco, foot traffic was up 5.2%. For August, while Walmart was slightly down 0.6%. On Labor Day, both the American Federation of Teachers and the Chicago Teachers Union announced they were joining the boycott against Target over it rolling back some diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts earlier this year. The boycott, which was spearheaded by black clergy, began in March. Quote, "We rarely engage in this type of action, but we're doing so here because Target betrayed promises to communities of color throughout the United States," unquote, AFT President Randy Weingarten said in a statement. On January 23rd, President Trump vowed to abolish all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense. That's a quote. And Target announced the next day it was ending some DEI initiatives, which Weingarten didn't think was a coincidence. Quote, "Target rolled back its promises to help people who have been loyal customers because of a president who's trying to roll back history and ignore the struggle for freedom and justice," unquote, Weingarten said. She goes on to say, "Those customers who have helped Target's bottom line now feel set aside, ignored, and dismissed," unquote. The Chicago Teachers Union added in a statement that it, quote, "stands in solidarity with the boycott of Target, recognizing the rollback of its DEI initiatives as part of a broader ideological attack on equity," unquote. The country's second largest teachers union behind the National Education Association, AFT, represents 1.8 million teachers and other workers. The CFT represents about 30,000. Target did not respond to a request for comment about the foot traffic decline and teacher boycott. Okay, so now that we're feeling good, it's time to talk about what's going on in the culture. This one is sort of interesting. I'm really looking forward to getting your initial thoughts on this one, Q. So I guess we'll jump into this one as well. From the BBC, the South Korean government says it is investigating potential human rights violations during the raid and detention of Korean workers by U.S. authorities. South Korea has expressed strong regret to the U.S. and has officially asked that its citizens' rights and interests are not infringed during law enforcement proceedings, said a presidential spokesperson on Monday. More than 300 South Korean workers returned home on Friday after being held for a week following a raid at an electric vehicle battery plant in the U.S. state of Georgia. The incident has tested ties between the countries, even as South Korea firms are set to invest billions in America under a trade deal to avoid steep U.S. tariffs. South Korean authorities will work with the relevant companies to, quote, thoroughly investigate any potential human rights violations or other issues, unquote, said the presidential spokesperson during a press briefing. The BBC has contacted U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement for comment. The raid has raised tensions between the U.S. and South Korea, where many of those detained were from, with President Lee Jae-myung, warning that it will discourage foreign investment into the U.S. He called the situation bewildering and added that it is a common practice for Korean companies to send workers to help set up overseas factories. Last week, Hyundai said the plant's opening will be delayed by at least 2 months. South Korea's trade unions have called on Trump to issue an official apology. On September 4th, around 475 people, mostly South Korean nationals, were arrested at a Hyundai-operated plant in what marked the largest single-location immigration raid since U.S. President Donald Trump launched a crackdown on illegal migrants earlier this year. ICE officials said the South Koreans had overstayed their visas or were not permitted to work in the U.S. A South Korean worker who witnessed the raid told the BBC of panic and confusion as federal agents descended on the site, with some people being led away in chains. Trump has said foreign workers sent to the country are welcome, and he doesn't want to frighten off investors. The U.S. needs to learn from foreign experts of fields like shipbuilding, chip making, and computing, Trump said on his Truth Social platform on Sunday. Goes on to say, we welcome them, we welcome their employees, and we are willing to proudly say we will learn from them and do even better than them at their own game sometime in the not too distant future, unquote, he said. So this one, I don't know. This one feels a little different, perhaps because these aren't Mexican. I mean, it's still very heavy-handed. It's still nonsense, and it's still quotas and all this sort of stuff that, business as usual. But it feels less heavy-handed than the raids on this alleged Mexican illegals that we've been seeing in the news. And obviously, I'd love to get your thoughts here because you've been following this more closely than I have. So yeah, what do you think?
Well, it doesn't feel different to me.
Okay.
Unless you're telling me these were white immigrants.
Mm. Yeah.
Are you? Because sometimes you be knowing
okay.
Stuff
yeah
that I don't be knowing.
Okay, here's what I was thinking. Okay. So ICE's raid feels consistent with ICE raids. Okay. Policing is policing, and we have a policing problem in this country, full stop. But Donald Trump's response, sort of trying to walk it back, still kind of insulting. We're going to beat them at their own game, that sort of thing. But, sort of saying we welcome the teachings and that sort of stuff, feels like a courtesy offered to the South Koreans because he probably needs them, needs the chips, needs the foreign investment into this country. It's big business, so that affects stock prices and, how other businesses are able to perform. And so it kind of feels like he's playing a little nicer in this one field than he is with the typical Mexican American ICE raids that we've been seeing. So that's kind of what I was getting to. The ICE practices themselves feel very similar. So, but I don't know. I just know that they're being sued for human rights violations. So maybe there's something that feels like more of a departure from where you sit. But it feels on brand, I guess.
Yeah, you just walked us and the audience to where I've always stood.
Okay.
Non-white immigrants are suing for human rights violations.
Mm-hmm.
Right? These people got back to their country and reported to the people in charge that for a week they were treated in a way that was consistent with civil and human rights violations. Mm-hmm. And their president reached out and talked about investment. Mm. And our small bully of a leader responded the way that he always does, except he played nice with capitalism. He didn't play nice with the people. He still found a way to insult them. He still found a way to insult them while pretending to pay them a compliment. But he heard the word investment, and I'm guessing to the tune of billions of dollars and technology that
Multi-billion, yeah.
they really, really need here. So that's what the kind of lightheartedness was about, the capitalism. The people got treated inhumanely for a week. And as I said, unless we're going to talk about a story where the people are immigrants from a country that's white, then it's much of the same.
Yeah.
Be you from Africa or the Caribbean or Asia or Mexico, Central America, South America, anywhere that's not what the UK, pretty much,
Yeah.
some of Eastern Europe, because a lot of Eastern Europe bleeds into Asia. So, you know, it's consistent with him. The idea that this was ever about legal or illegal immigration was always a joke. And this is just further proof.
Yeah.
Shout out to this president for speaking up for his people. Um, but even then, capitalism has this president not turned all the way up because they still want to do business here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, like, yeah, you violated our people a little bit, but if you could just apologize, we'll be cool because we still want to build that plant and sell those cars and make these chips. So, you know what I mean? If you can just honor us with an apology, which that'll be interesting because that wasn't an apology. It'll be interesting to see if there's an actual admission of wrongdoing or my bad, even. But this is much of the same, man. The
I,
immigration,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
the right stance on immigration has always been about white supremacy.
Yeah.
It's never been about legal versus illegal.
I think that so you sent, I don't even know if you remember this, but you sent a post over to our group chat, and it was from Qasim Rashid. For folks that don't know, follow Qasim Rashid on all social media. He's just a brilliant political mind, and a former guest on the show. We should have him back up, but he put a post up, and I think it really captures kind of what you were suggesting here. His post says, "Hey, by the way, South Koreans are now reporting that they were put in chains and treated like animals for 7 days after ICE raided the multi-billion-dollar plant where they were setting up for the benefit of 8,500 high-paying American jobs. They had valid visas. They were here legally. They did everything right. Trump still treated them like animals." And I think this is the point you were making. It was never about legal immigration. It was always about banning non-white immigration. And a funny story is I actually saw a video from the lady who reported these folks. And she was trying to like mount a defense of herself, like why she's not a bad person. And she's like, I know I've been married 5 times and I know all the, and just, but she seemed like, a Trumper that is whipped up, in all the things that Donald Trump says these folks should be angry about. And she might have cost this country billions of dollars worth of future investments that we'll never know because South Koreans are like, you know what? The UK is not so weird and the US is weird right now, so we're cool on them. So, moving on. Got some opinions on this. The Trump administration cancels $350 million from minority serving schools. Feels like we've been covering these stories over and over again, but they're all different stories. So it's just like it's watching the fall of the Roman Empire, and the people that are doing it are the ones chanting Rome the whole time. It's so crazy that they're doing this to themselves, those in power and those that voted for this power structure that we're currently being subjected to. And they won't know until it's too late, or they might not never know in their lifetime, which is sad because their children's children will definitely look back on this time and say, man, we had it all and blew it. So Anyway, this from the Hill. The Education Department announced Wednesday that it is ending discretionary funding to multiple minority serving institutions grant programs. The funding violated the law, according to the Trump administration, because it goes to institutions that, quote, meet racial or ethnic quotas, unquote. Here's another quote. Discrimination based upon race or ethnicity has no place in the United States. This from Education Secretary Linda McMahon. She goes on to say, to further our commitment to ending discrimination in all forms across federally supported programs, the department will no longer award minority serving institution grants that discriminate by restricting eligibility to institutions that meet government mandated racial quotas. This continues. Diversity is not merely the presence of skin color. Stereotyping an individual based on immutable characteristics diminishes the full picture of that person's life and contributions, including their character, resiliency, and merit. The department looks forward to working with Congress to re-envision these programs to support institutions that serve underprivileged or under-resourced students without relying on race quotas, and will continue fighting to ensure that students are judged as individuals and not prejudged by their membership of a racial group, unquote. The administration did not specify where the $350 million in discretionary funds that was expected for these programs will go. Okay. I got a couple of opinions here. First, well, I think that we've established long ago on this show that this administration's whole push is indeed an amplification or a doubling down of what has been typical in the right-wing playbook for quite a bit of time. Mischaracterize what practices are being pushed or implemented by the left, mischaracterize them, and then attack the mischaracterization of them. So the rebranding, we've done this many times, the rebranding of DEI the rebranding of critical race theory was one of the ones that they did. So they kind of reshaped the meaning of critical race theory to suggest that kindergartners were being taught to hate themselves and hate this country, which has never been true. Critical race theory was always a college level sort of field of study. And because of the fact that this sort of thing has been sort of rinse and repeat across the board, things like woke, like not just terms, but, practices, as I mentioned, we end up with a reality where we're fighting against ghosts that never existed. And this is something that you've pointed out frequently on the show, Q. So indeed, when we're looking at the Department of Education, they have mischaracterized minority serving schools and the funding that props up those schools, suggesting that these schools somehow deny that, and the implication here, they don't outright suggest it, but they're implying somehow that these schools are discriminating against other students with these racial quotas. And the truth is, the racial quota is simply a bar that schools, based on their enrollment data, that bar determines whether or not they qualify. It's not like schools pursue any specific number or quotient of students or anything like that. Some schools, HBCUs in particular, historically have had a larger black student population because once upon a time, nobody could go to white schools unless they were white. So in order for black communities to have doctors and lawyers and whatnot, they needed separate schools, right? And so historically, those schools have been black, and based on where they are in the country and based on that legacy, a lot of those schools still have a lot of black folks that attend there. Same with Hispanic schools as well. So they have denied funding now, $350 million worth, which is critical for those types of schools because they don't have the benefactors and the donors and all that sort of stuff that, your Harvards have and They don't have the alumni that can prop up the funding in the way that some PWIs have. PWI stands for primarily white institutions, I believe, and that's kind of the separating factor there. So, um, more of the same, and they're going to continue to do that. They're going to suggest that somehow these schools are discriminating against white children, and white children are suffering as a result of these schools' existence, when these schools wouldn't exist in the first place if this country had not had 400 years worth of racism in its roots, right? And so this has been an active push to try to remedy the injustices of the past, and an active push to bring about equitable outcomes for all communities. If indeed this country believes that everyone has the capacity more or less than everyone else, then there's got to be some systemic issues that need to be addressed. And this is one such issue that was being addressed by these schools. And since these schools, again, didn't have the long list of donors that the PWIs had, again, they've had to appeal to the government, grants, et cetera, to try to make sure that they're providing quality education and meeting the students where they are, and providing the educational opportunities that the students need to get out there and become productive Americans. And this administration attacking this at the root with their funding, it's like the America is shooting herself in the foot and blaming black people and minorities, which I'm sure you would say, Q, is kind of standard practice. So, your thoughts?
So the interesting thing is HBCUs are not going to be specifically impacted by these cuts.
Okay.
But just to speak to what I know those on the right think and believe about HBCUs. So historically black colleges and universities were founded before 1964 with the primary mission of educating black Americans who were excluded from predominantly white institutions. Mm-hmm. But from the beginning, their legal charter and current practice has always been open to students of any race or ethnicity. Mm-hmm. Because I know eventually they're going to go down this road. Yeah. Title IV schools. HBCUs are accredited, federally recognized institutions that cannot legally bar students on the basis of race. Roughly 20 to 25% of students at HBCUs are not black. Many have significant white, Latino, Asian, and international students. The historically black designation refers to the origins and the cultural mission of these schools, not their admissions requirements. They were created for access, not exclusion, which is the truth of everything that we've been talking about.
Thank you.
So all of these programs and institutions and subsidies were created to give access to people who historically were excluded. Now those who did the excluding are pretending that they are the victims of exclusion, suing and winning. Yeah. What a world this is.
I don't know, man. It is a bleak moment. And your point is well made that these cuts don't impact the HBCUs, but they do impact the Latino or the Hispanic serving institutions. And we talked about that a little bit a few weeks ago, but now that it's kind of done,
native serving institutions
yes,
as well.
Yes, you're right. So now that that's done, it feels a little like my heart breaks for those communities. So. Better do better. All right. NFL honors assassinated political pundit Charlie Kirk. All right. This is from the New York Times. The NFL said it was the league's decision to hold a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk ahead of Thursday night's game between the Washington Commanders and the Green Bay Packers. It's up to the clubs whether or not they will hold moments of silence during Week 2 games on Sunday, the league said in a statement. Quote, there have been a variety of moments of silence and tributes in stadium and on air in all games or a game immediately following the events that rise to a national level, unquote, the NFL said in a statement. Clubs also hold moments following a tragic event that affects their community. That was a continuation. It goes on. There have been moments following school shootings or an attack on a house of worship, such as the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh in 2018. There have also been moments following major international incidents, such as Hamas attacks on Israel in October 2023, and weather-related incidents, such as major hurricanes and fires. This, in addition to honoring those in the NFL family, from tributes to recently passed players or personnel, or a player such as Damar Hamlin in 2023. The NFL also honored before the Super Bowl Live NBA star Kobe Bryant and the other victims of the helicopter crash, Gianna Bryant, Sarah and Peyton Chester, Christina Mauser, Aria Zabayan, and also Pro Football Hall of Famer Chris Dolman, who passed that week. Unquote. About 25 minutes before kickoff of the Commanders-Packers game at Lambeau Field, the in-stadium public address announcer said, quote, "The National Football League asks that you please join us in a moment of silent reflection following the murder of Charlie Kirk. The NFL condemns all violence in our communities. It will take all of us to stop hate. Thank you," unquote. Wow, what a quote. I didn't even know they said that. Okay, we got to come back to that. All right. The New York Yankees also honored Kirk with a moment of silence before their game against the Detroit Tigers Wednesday night. Kirk's death prompted reaction from many, including notable NFL figures like New York Giants rookie quarterback Jackson Dart, former New England Patriots receiver Julian Edelman, Kansas City Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker, former quarterback Tim Tebow, former punter and current analyst Pat McAfee, and others. The NFL said Friday it has held similar moments in just this calendar year. Quote, "Lift Every Voice and Sing has been performed at league events since 2020 following the murder of George Floyd and the events of summer of 2020, including the last Thursday during the kickoff game in Philadelphia. It also performed before the Super Bowl," unquote, the NFL said in a statement. Quote, "This summer before the Hall of Fame game in Canton, the league honored the victims and those impacted by the attack at 345 Park Avenue. During Week 18 games last season, the NFL honored the victims of Bourbon Street terrorist attack. Also that season, the NFL had a moment to recognize those lost in the deadly crashes near Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia, and also prior to the Vikings-Rams wildcard game that was moved from L.A. to Arizona due to wildfires," unquote. Okay. There's never going to be a time when I have more to offer something like this than you. Q, give me and give all of us your thoughts.
I don't really have enough time to give all my thoughts on this one because this is hypocrisy at a grand scale. The NFL, a league built on the blood, sweat, and talent of mostly black players, just honored Charlie Kirk. Yes, that Charlie Kirk, a man who spent his career mocking those very players that dared to stand up for justice. The same league that once blackballed Colin Kaepernick for kneeling, the same league that ran Inspire Change ads and painted in racism in the end zones after George Floyd. Now they're honoring a man who ridiculed those efforts, demonized those protests, and dismissed the pain that was inspired by them. So let's be clear here. Charlie Kirk went out of his way to belittle athletes who protested police brutality. He called social justice in sports poison rams. He targeted the very men who risked their careers to bring awareness to systemic racism. He wasn't neutral. He wasn't centrist. He was, as I've said many a times, a provocateur who thrived on division and built his brand and his millions attacking movements like the NFL ending racism. So remember, Rams, when Black Lives Matter became corporate friendly, the NFL leaned in. Ads, slogans, statements said they were on the side of justice. Like I said, they put in racism in the end zone. Except when the league started back up, they started to back away from that. They started getting rid of end racism and started putting things like unity. So anti-racism was rebranded. And now we're honoring Charlie Kirk. The NFL pretending to stand against racism while honoring Charlie Kirk is the type of hypocrisy that Rams and I talk about on every show. You can't erase in racism from the end zone and then drape yourself as the moral authority when it's convenient. Honoring Charlie Kirk is not neutral. It's not respectful. It's complicit. It kind of feels like a signal that anti-racism was never the point in the first place. They just wanted good optics, like a black square on Instagram.
That's potent.